Buying a plot can be easy, or maybe a tedious task sometimes, especially when you have so many real estate companies, agents, landowners, and even sometimes so-called landlords all calling to buy their properties. Getting the land is the easiest part, but owning the land with genuine documentation is the problem. We have seen unprecedented court cases of people going to court to settle land issues. If you're looking to buy a plot or a build home with no risk of stress, guys, look for the right real estate company. At EJ Investments, we don't just sell plots, we build communities, where any plot you buy from us comes with access to water, electricity, internal roads, and other social amenities. We guarantee you genuine contract documentations the moment you pay a deposit and a complete handover of your title deeds as soon as completing payment. We currently operate 3 projects in strategic locations, selling service plots and build homes in our estate 2 Jering Seafront, Sanyang Seaview Estate, and our Gunjur C4 Coastal Highway Estate. Our plots are affordable. From only $90,000, you can own a home at our Gunjur C4 Coastal Highway Estate. And from $200,000, you can own a home of your dream at our Sanyang Seaview and Lakeview Estate. Our 2 Jering Seafront Estate starts from $300,000. Plot sizes ranges from 20 by 20, 20 by 25, and 25 by 25. And we offer an option of 30% deposit and 2-year payment plans on our estates. A beautiful home with peaceful and happy neighborhood awaits you at our project 2 Jering Seafront Estate, Sanyang Seaview and Lakeview Estate and Gunjur C4 Coastal Highway Estate. Call our office on 4464-838 or 302-1056, which is also on WhatsApp. Email us or visit our website on ejinvestments.net to learn more about our projects. EJ Investments, we're fast in property.
This afternoon we have the chairman of the Faraba Commission, lawyer Emmanuel Jove, who led the team to investigate the incident that happened in Faraba. Lawyer, welcome to the Brunch.
Thank you very much, Fatou. Thank you, Lamin.
It's been a couple of months since your team took over to investigate what happened in Faraba. A lot of people anxiously waited for the report, and the report came out this week. So many people are not satisfied. People thought there were certain people that were picked on, and especially the PIU officers, and a lot of questions were unanswered. Chief, was generally, when you guys took up this role, what was the mandate?
Yeah, thank you very much, Fatou. Thank you very much, Kerr, Fatou, and team. You're right. The president, if you remember, in July, instituted an independent commission of inquiry to look into the events of Faraba Banta. And the commission was given specific mandate. One of it was to look at the circumstances that led to the events in Faraba Banta. How? What happened? How did we get to Faraba Banta, which led to the deaths of the protesters, injuries, widespread vandalism? So the president wanted us to look at it. And in looking at it, one of the mandates that we had was to also look at the circumstances that led to the shooting. Who may have given the order? Who actually shot who? And who were the people who were involved in the destruction of the properties? You know, as you know, trucks were burned, houses were burned, arsons. The president also told us to make recommendations so that something, what happened in Faraba Banta will not happen again. We also told to make recommendation to look at other areas, hotspots. As you know, there were similar issues relating to environmental issues, land matters, and there were demonstrations, for example, in Gunjur and other places. Even if you remember Tenene, when the Manjago Christian graveyard was actually encroached on. And the president also mandated us to look at issues relating to policing and crowd control in these situations, how it can be improved. So this was actually our mandate under the Constitution. And we were given a 1-month period and with an extension of 1 month, maximum 2 months, to go to the nitty-gritty and look at these things and come up with recommendations. And we started this in July. And the commission had a regular sitting at Atlantic Hotel. But not only that, we were also sitting in Faraba, Banta. We also did field visits in Tugunjur and Sanyang. Now, during this process, we interviewed about 85 witnesses. Those from Faraba, Banta, who knew or should have known what happened. We interviewed the police high command, the PIU officers, at least those who are identified as being on the ground. We spoke to the we interviewed the VDC, the Village Development Committee, the Council of Elders in Faraba, the women who had their rice fields, the youth, the deputy imams. We interviewed Julake. As you know, the problem in Faraba stemmed from the issuing of a license to a private person called Julake to mine sand in Faraba, Banta. We also interviewed the geological department because, as you know, it is the geological department that issues license. And of course, the NEA, because they do this environmental impact assessment. And so we spoke the Permanent Secretary, Department of Land. We also summoned the pathologist. You know, there were people who were shot and some died. 3 of them died. We even spoke to the chairman of the Select Committee of the National Assembly because they also went there. So we actually, we spoke to a lot of people. We interviewed people. We brought in even experts, former director of NEA, because we were not only listening to what they're telling us, but what should have been the processes. So we spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to some, Francis Mendy, who also is a conflict analyst specialist who used to work for ONE. We just wanted, because we are mandated to get to the bottom of it. So this is what informed what came out in the report. And this was the report that we handed to His Excellency. And it contained all the, you know, we had a professional photographer with us, with the exhibits, the coroner's inquest, the pathologist's report. So it was a detailed investigation. And this is, just this week, the president then came up with, the government, through the president, came up with a government white paper. And we had made recommendations. Yes. And they adopted, I would say, most of the recommendations.
Most of them.
And they even went further, to be honest. They went further than...
Did they adopt all the recommendations?
I would say yes.
Okay.
The only difference is they said that some of them will be in phases. Yeah. Because there were a lot of other things that were involved, even the issue of sand mining, looking at alternative ways of do we have to be mining sand from our beaches? Yeah. Because we had an expert who said, no, we don't have to. You know, even this basalt, if you look at it, the hills in Mansakonko and Bantang, we had an expert who said, listen, this can serve Gambia for 1,000 years if we get our act together. So I guess there's some of those recommendations. That's why I said our recommendations were quite broad. Okay. But also to look at, as I mentioned, I think people concentrated more on who gave the orders. Yes. I think that is the burning issue.
And this process,
who shot?
Yes.
And who is prosecuted?
And who is prosecuted?
And you the see, circumstances, the thing is, you made mention of something. Yes. Circumstances that led to the incident.
And that was very important.
And that is the root cause of
because that is what gives us the context. Yes. How we got to Faraba. Mm-hmm. How we got to Faraba. You see, but when you set up a commission of inquiry, there were a lot of emotions, expectations. In fact, I used to hear people say, nothing will come out of it. Yeah. Yes. You see, people were very angry against the PIU, nothing will come out of it. And then when it came out, people say, oh, you see, they're victimizing the PIU. Yeah. You cannot satisfy everybody. Yeah. You see, the people who, geology, these are the government institutions. And when something, and as you know, the government has actually suspended those responsible for, those who have not followed the right procedures and processes. They've been suspended for 6 months without pay. There are, of course, some who are saying, the livelihood of these people. You see, Fatou, you cannot satisfy everybody. That's why we really, the good thing is none of us had an interest in this. I think And if you ask me genuinely, at the time this incident happened, if I remember the words of the president himself, he said that this is the saddest day in my life.
Yes.
And I actually believe that, you know why? You see, Gambia, coming from the transition, what used to happen in Yahya Jammeh's period, we were hailed as, this is now the government of rule of law, human rights. So I think they were really concerned because it was a taint, in this image of this government that if they have not achieved anything, people were saying at least there is freedom of expression and human rights.
Yeah.
So we were very open. These sittings were very open. We had no interest in it. Of course, when you have set up these things, people will be suspicious. So people were saying a lot of things. They will never finish. They will extend. They're staying at the Atlantic Hotel. I heard many, many things. Right. But we were focused. We needed to answer these questions. We had a mandate. And I was very happy that we kept to time. These things are possible. Yeah. We kept to the given time. Of course, there were challenges. If you work in the Gambia, there are challenges. Even before we started here, we were 1 hour late. You had challenges with the internet. But we made sure that, listen, let's have a time frame. And let's answer. Now, let me now hear your questions. What do you want to ask?
Well, I have had a mixed bag of reactions. Your commission was commended actually for comprehensively going over all the key players and all the areas in crime. But like you said, people pick and choose certain aspects of the recommendations that they believe were important. For example, the police high command has been cleared of allegedly giving orders to the defendants to shoot. And you said, your commission said, from what you have found, that the PIU officers on duty acted alone. Of course, they were also overpowered and there was a lot of violence in that. From that level, many people said the Minister of the Interior, for example, nothing has been said, nothing has been observed as to whether there must have been negligence or omissions of duties on the Ministry of the Interior. Were they sacred cows in this matter, or there was nothing that, in any circumstance, in any way, would lead to them?
Okay. As I told you, we interviewed many people. And we were not just, we interviewed on the basis of relevance. Absolutely. If you were going to add value to our investigation, we interviewed you. And we interviewed the current, the then IGP Kinte, who resigned. He appeared before us. The current IGP Mohammed came before us. The guys, the operations, the PIU. You see, the thing is, we wanted to know, before we start with the interior, who were the direct people? Yeah, and this were, we started with them. I'll mention one or two about the interior because a lot of people, and we need to ask. We've been quiet for 22 years, so Gambians will talk. Some will talk out of genuine concern. Some have a template to criticize. There is a template. They have to criticize. Yeah. So okay. So just coming to why, for example, we said what we say, that the orders, as far as we are concerned, and our investigation did not come from the top command. We brought them, and and also those officers who were on the ground, because you had to ask them. You see, the thing is, let me start by explaining that there were officers who were already stationed in Faraba, Banta. Yes. Because there was an incident prior to the 18th. And Juleke was given a license. He didn't give himself a license. You see, this is another issue is a lot of people are saying, why didn't you hold him culpable? We had to look at everything. Juleke never gave himself a license. He was given a license. Yes. And because he was blocked, the police had stationed a paramilitary unit there to allow him to so that he could operate. Whether that was correct or not is another issue which we will look at. I will try and answer all your questions. Yeah. Now, on the day in question, there was a fracas between the PIU on the ground and the villagers, because the villagers were of course, they objected to the mining because one, they said that they were never properly consulted. You see, it is true, if you look at the Mines Act, everything above under the ground belongs to the state. But even before license are given to miners, to people operating factories, it must follow a particular process. And there must be an environmental impact assessment from NEA and many other things. There has to be a memorandum of understanding between the proprietor and also the stakeholders. The problem here was that the geological department, NEA, were saying, well, we followed this and we looked at the processes and we felt, looking at everything, that there were gaps. For example, the MOU. The MOU was signed only by the Alcalo. But the MOU must be signed in consultation with all the stakeholders. You had rice fields. Women had rice fields. And their complaint was commercial sand mining in that area will affect the water course that will come. So when we looked at it, we discovered that they had actually objected to the MOU because they said we were never part of it. It was the Alcalo who signed and claimed. And of course the geological department would say, well, if the Alcalo is the head of the village, then but of course you needed more. The procedure and the guidelines, and also a proper environmental impact. If you go to Faraba, Banta, you see that even sand has been mined before, and even those that abandoned the sand mines never did any restoration. So anyway, but now coming back to this issue. So when the problem happened that day, there were of course reinforcement. Police officers were sent. The rifle team went, but tear gas team, and yes, people were killed.
Is it important for us to know that someone deployed that? Is that important in the investigation? To know that like someone ordered for them to go on the ground?
No, it was not in dispute that there were already PIUs on the ground.
Yeah.
It is not in dispute that during the day of the problem, they sent more PIU officers there. Now the issue is this: who gave the orders for them to shoot? People died. And then we tried, okay, I probably digress a bit. So we interviewed those who had the guns. You see, not all of them had guns. We could identify who had guns because when you're going for this deployment, the PIU is the military wing, it's not the military wing, is the armed wing of the police. So we knew who were giving guns. We also knew who, if you're giving guns, you'll be given magazines, 30 rounds, 60 rounds. And then some, when they returned their arms, they were missing. So where's the arms? And people were shot, people died, people were injured. And there was nothing in evidence to show that anybody else had guns except them. So it was actually firing from this PIU. So we asked them. They didn't tell us that they had. Naturally, they themselves would have told us. We got orders from X, Y, or Z. In fact, two of them said that they got orders from a chief inspector, and the order was for them to fire warning shots. Two of them said that. So we wanted to know who is this chief inspector. If you have been given orders by a chief inspector, you must, who is this? Because we want to call him, because he would have given orders of warning shots. That's what they said. They could not give us a name. They could not describe this chief inspector. Was he looking like Lamin Cham? Was he like Emmanuel Juf? Or so? But we went further. We discovered who actually was on the ground, and we discovered that there were 3 chief inspectors in the vicinity. So we called them. And we found out that one of them was not even in Faraba, Banta, but he was going outside the outskirts. He was told to bring fuel. He was going to some. There were others who were in the vicinity, but they said they actually never gave orders. And none of the PIU officers said that they were given orders. Now, the Inspector General of Police at the time, as you know, was Landing Kinkin. He also came. In fact, on the day he was on his way to America, he actually didn't even report to work. He was informed that, hey, there is problem in Faraba, Banta. So he was even informed that there is a problem. And he canceled his trip that day. And he was the one who even ordered the arrest of those 5 PIU officers. He was the one who gave the orders, based on the fact that they had guns, and some of them had spent cartridges. Yeah? Just showing, he was the... the current IGP as well could not be linked to giving orders. And these police officers would have told us who gave them the orders.
Gave them the orders.
The most senior officer on the ground, close by, was Superintendent Babukar Cham, I think, who didn't have a gun, we discovered, but he was in the outskirts. But he could have been in a position to give orders. But he said he didn't give orders. We asked the men, did he give orders? They said also he didn't give orders. But he had chain and command of the troop, of his PIU officer. And he's the head of the PIU, the deployment there. And there was also Assistant Superintendent Fatou, who was actually involved in the ground, who had a pistol and a gun. Ammunitions were missing. But this is the point I'm making. You see, the questions were asked, who gave the orders? We can talk about many other issues as to should there have been PIU officers in the ground in the first place. Because if you look at the report, we said that the mistake was when you have unresolved issues like that, they should have avoided putting the police there. You see, this issue spanned a period of over 1 year. You'll be very surprised that even the parties who are in dispute, from Julake, from the VDC, the Council of Elders, they attended series of meetings.
Well before this incident.
Not only that, now since you want thinking that we spare the IGP, there were no sacred cows. We discovered, not the IGP, the Interior Minister. We discovered that I think at the pit, when these problems initially, the disputes as to the issuance of the license started, he was, I think, governor of West Coast.
Yes, he was.
And we discovered through evidence that he actually called them for a meeting. Yes, he called them, all of them, present, and he instructed them to go back. It's in evidence, in the records, to find an amicable solutions, especially to this memorandum of understanding. Because Julake was saying, well, I have one, signed by the Alcalo, the villagers were saying no. They were also resisting by saying that, of course, it will affect the livelihood of the area because of rice fields and all these things. So, on the day of the incident, the Interior Minister was not part of the picture. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
He is the Interior Minister. For example, I would say even the IGP then, as you rightly said, he was not even in office, but he took responsibility and said, listen, since I am the overall head, I am resigning. But the question that was asked, and we wanted to answer, who gave the orders? Even the PIU officers. We are not sending anybody under the bus. They said it was not Kinte. It was, So you see what, we can talk about many other issues about maybe the way the police went about things, but who gave the orders for the shooting? It was a question that was asked. It was not given by the police high command. So, okay, go on.
We may look at the chain of events that led to Faraba.
Yes.
People who have played huge role that led to what the outcome that Faraba became, a bloody one. So, and you've just said that there were a lot of people who, in the first place, there were people who take these police officers to there, and should they even have been there in the first place? And also, should they have take arms with them? Like, because we know police are trained in certain crowd control measures. Could they have deployed that instead of use of arms? Have you?
Absolutely.
Have you asked questions?
Not only that, we have recommended. You see, we also came up with our recommendation.
But people who have done those things, who ordered them to go there, and people who gave them grants.
But that's what I'm exactly saying. Even we recommended, because one of the things was let us look at the way policing is done, and also in crowd control. To start with, we discovered the police are poorly equipped, even in riot. They didn't have enough helmets, gear, body-proof armor, one. Two, should they be using AK-47 We think that they're better off with water cannons and rubber bullets.
You
No,
made
I'm
those
just saying that's why when people talk, they will look at the report.
Yeah.
We didn't. We looked at it and said even the command, there was no proper coordination in the process. There was no proper coordination. We've mentioned that. We also did mention the fact that, you see, even with the PIU, have these people been properly trained and oriented? We are coming from 22 years of a period where these people were trigger happy.
Yeah.
We have recommended.
You recommended whether there was
security
any vetting,
sector reform, proper vetting. It's here.
as to
You
whether
will
they might
have, you
have
see,
been
a lot of
involved in
people
past violence.
just sat down and said we should have said A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
We said more and
than
much
that.
more
Yeah.
here. Yeah, you're itching to come in.
I
Yes,
still
please.
want to come
I think
into
the problem
the
is,
circumstance that led to.
the white paper
Yes.
was what actually was more circulated than the report.
No, this was never circulated. I just brought it just for you to know
that's the problem.
that there is a report and there is a white paper.
Uh-huh. So the issue is there are things dealt with here who are not dealt in the white
No,
paper.
yes, because
Yeah.
no, because this was what led to the event. You will find out
Yeah.
the key summary, the steps,
Yeah.
how we got to Faraba Banta.
Yeah.
It's
So,
there.
It's there. So I still want to come to the circumstances.
Please come.
2 days before the incident,
Yes.
We also had interview. I think we were the first person to interview the IGP,
Yes.
and that led us to interview the National Assembly because what happened was before the incident, there were a series of issues going on.
Many.
The people of Faraba cried a long time, and the government, I think, negligence should be something that this commission should look at as to, I don't know where it's coming from, but the government did not listen to the people of Faraba when they needed them. I think that inaction led to this incident, one. But secondly, 2 days before the incident, the National Assembly Select Committee gave an order to say they visited Faraba and said they realized they want Julake to stop mining. Well, what powers do they have to give Julake to stop? Because Julake has a license. Nobody should blame this gentleman. He has a license that was issued. How it was issued, I have no idea. But he has a license. And National Assembly gave orders for him to stop through the Ministry and Geology. Geology and the Ministry did not filter that to the police. And the information was circulated on social media and in Faraba. The next day, the people of Faraba woke up and the police were still there. And for them, National Assembly said, you should cease operation. That's what triggered the incident. And they attacked the police. So, because the police have been in Faraba for months, the attack has not happened. What triggered is the information coming out, the confusion, information coming out that they have been asked to cease operation. And the police command told us when we had interview, the IGP, that information did not get to them. The police, the National Assembly did not write to them, and Geology did not give them that. So as far as their men were concerned, they are still protecting Julake and his men on the field. This led to the incident. What happened with the National Assembly? Was there negligence? Was there somebody overusing their powers they don't have? It's important for people to follow procedures and processes. When we asked, they were like, it was Friday, and the geology department did not get the letter, but you still went ahead and gave this information to the public. Did that incite violence in Faraba?
This is interesting. I think she should have come in as a
Commission
witness.
right, yeah.
No.
But what you are saying here was reflected in the white paper, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly. You see, you're very right. Okay, the National Select Committee of the Environment, National Assembly, I think they started with a good intention to mediate. They saw their role as mediators. They went there. And it's been highlighted here. And I don't think the government is very happy because they said, in fact, it said that they should know their boundaries.
Boundaries.
It is stated in the white paper, actually, if you read it.
So it was
Yes.
captured.
Because, okay,
was captured,
what
but
I
should
would
it just
say,
be- yeah.
what I would say, definitely they thought, it's a new assembly. They went there, looked at the rice fields, and they called Julake, they called the different parties. The impression that they gave, we actually, in our report, did mention it sent the wrong signal. Because what the villagers felt, because we talked to the BDC,
Yeah.
they said they were very shocked when they had the trucks in the morning of the 18th, to them they said, what the National Assembly members have already given instruction. The National Assembly member cannot give instructions. You see, that was the problem.
That triggered the incident. Is it right to say that
I would say it
the
will,
18th?
Now, are you suggesting that the National Assembly Select Committee should be culpable?
Yes.
what I'm saying...
I am saying...
Why are they not?
No,
Why
let
are
me
they
say,
not?
I'm saying that information triggered on the 18th.
Well, it was reflected in the white paper, and they've been told categorically that they must know their boundaries. I do not think that may have been their intention, but it's the signal that they sent. You see, Gambia is emerging now from social media, and a lot of people felt that the National Assembly had the right.
To do it.
Juleke, in fact, when they called him,
yes,
he told them, yeah, but I have a license.
License.
Because they are not the ones who issued the license.
No.
You see, but just to buttress the point, again, this shows the chain of events that led to the standoff. And we did capture that. It was a point, and it was a point that the white paper, a big paragraph of it was to the National Assembly. So that next time, you have to be very, you know your boundaries.
I agree, Fatou, that
the
National Assembly was at least named and shamed for sending the wrong signals.
No, we have seen that we commended them were trying to mediate, but the signals that they sent by telling or giving the impression that they can stop Juleke.
It's not their job.
Yeah, because they were saying we were going to write to geology to tell Juleke to stop, and people just felt these are our National Assembly members. So if they were deputy.
You captured that in the. You captured.
No, we meant, and that's what I'm saying. The white paper, we may have been a bit, maybe not a bit harsh. We did say that. We said that it contributed because our job was what led to the standoff. And one of the things that led to the standoff was that the fact that when the people were interviewed, they said, "Well, we heard that the National Assembly told them, so they should not be mining sand." And they've been warned here to get their act together and not involve in matters and know their boundaries. It's very, very clear here. But that was not only that. As you rightly said, there are others. You seem to be very passionate about the National Assembly. No, I met with somebody who was very angry that Juleke was not held liable. You see, everybody has their, you see, there you differ. Okay, I'm just saying, but sometimes it's just, people are not au fait with the facts. A lot of people are saying many things. Some people, I've read somebody saying, this report is a whitewash. And I'm telling you, none of them have read it. A lot of people have not read the report. But anyway, it's...
But the only thing I want to add to that, your report highlighted that the PIU, in the absence of concrete evidence that somebody ordered them to shoot, they acted alone. But again, you highlighted that they were overpowered and you know, by the crowd. Now, one may argue that supposing, of course, the fundamental issue still remains, how do they get their armed when other methods could have been used? If somebody is overpowered in spontaneous, outnumbered, in spontaneous burst of violence, wouldn't it be reasonable to believe that that man may act in self-defense and this led to the inevitable shooting? Didn't your commission capture this thing and perhaps recommend a lenient sanction for the PIU rather than saying they should be prosecuted? Of course, we know that where it comes to that, that's the greatest crime you can ever do. But didn't you consider that probably they acted in self-defense? They mentioned that they were overpowered. And there are incidents, it's not disputed that the villagers were stoning them. So remember, it was there was a fracas, there was a running, like a running battle here and there. Occasionally, the villagers will even have an upper hand on them. That's there. But I'm not saying that there were times, maybe pockets of them were overpowered. But we sat there. We saw the autopsy report. We looked at the medical reports. Some people were shot running away from behind. You see, we had to be honest. That's why we mentioned they were overpowered in some instances, as they mentioned. But let me tell you, some even chased the villagers into the village. And a lot of them that were shot also suffered gunshot wounds from behind.
You see, self-defense has to be.
From.
Do you see what I'm saying? So there was that issue as well. 2, the police have a standard operation procedures, as was told to us by the Inspector General of Police. In case of riots, there is a procedure and a process that must be followed. That's what I said. The whole event was not properly coordinated. That's why. Yeah, we mentioned that. And he told us that in this kind of situation, you come, you find a crowd, you read a proclamation with a loud hailer. They said actually they did. But as you interview different PIU officers, they were telling us different stories. They have a proclamation in the name of the Republic of the country. We are ordering you to disperse within this number of period. If they don't disperse, then you fire tear gas at the crowd. Okay? If they don't disperse and there are violent protesters with ammunition and all these things, then you even now give orders if they're endangering life. And you give orders, and then when you shoot, you go to the ground and you shoot below the knees. You see, even there is a procedure. I'm not saying that there was no time in the process that some were not overpowered, but I'm just telling you from basis on the facts that we had, that if you shoot somebody from behind, it shows that they were running away. If you chase somebody up to the village and you beat them up with baton, I don't think that is overpowering. You see, but these are all the issues that are there.
And of course, the fact that they did not follow the procedures, like shooting them in the legs would have been, perhaps that could save, that could prevent deaths.
Well,
the other thing is, let's come
then
to
the government, instead of government said they were overpowered, outnumbered, and they acted out of fear.
Yes,
for
and
their lives. That's a quote.
Yes, but no, I know, but this one, it came from the report itself.
Yes.
Because some of them, this is what they say, and we believe that there were instances when some of them felt that they were surrounded because they had to run, and some of them were injured.
Injured, yeah.
Yeah, it's proof. So out of fear, but now that
would be in their defense. In the court,
no, I'm just saying that is part of the story. But we also, as I'm telling you, part of the story is that we discovered that even the name of the Operation No Compromise, you know, that was the name of the operations that they call it.
Operation of Faraba.
Yes, and instances, we spoke to even the likes of the journalist Pa Bojang, who was beaten thoroughly. He was standing with his camera.
Yes,
he was not even part of the village. But I'm just saying that there are aspects of the different stories.
Was there anything on him in the report?
Yeah, the report mentioned he's a witness, commission witness. He's even named because people felt that his name was not there.
Yeah,
he was
again.
But all the people who came, their names. There is a commission witness list. There is a commission exhibit list, and we mentioned that he gave his testimony.
Let's come to
and that is why I'm saying the police told us some of them that they were overpowered and fear, and that was the way we coined it. And then they opened fire. Okay, that was the way we put. But we discovered in the process, some were actually taken, the likes of Pabuja, we were taken, beaten up thoroughly. Others were shot whilst they were fleeing. You see, let us not make sin out of the PIU or even the protesters. There was a fracas. And our job was to get to the bottom of the truth. And it's up to the government to look at our report and come up with we did recommend some things. But that's what I'm saying. Now, you mentioned, in fact, if you look at what the government says about prosecution, it didn't say that they should even be prosecuted with murder, although they had started the prosecution before. But this report says that appropriate prosecution. They have realized maybe some of them
may not be charged with murder.
Yes, because the other problem that was why it was also difficult. They were wearing helmets. Even identification is a problem. They were wearing helmets and they actually shot, but which bullet even killed who? But we know that they were given guns, they were given, and they fired.
And they were the only ones armed there.
They're the one, it is not, we even asked them the question to actually dispel these rumors, because when we started hearing that they were even among the protesters,
like
April 10 and 11.
April 10 and 11.
Absolutely. You know, you have people who will spin these things in their favor. So we try to find out. And we asked them the question, so are we right to say that the only people who had guns in the vicinity at the material time were PIU officers? And they said yes.
Of course.
And we went further to ask them, therefore, if injuries, gunshot, if people were injured because of gunshot wounds, is it fair to say that it may have come from your guns? They said, yes. So that one was clear.
So now, from what we have said, and of course, part of these problems and these reactions is because a lot of people have not read
No, they have not read
the report itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were commenting on the recommendations the government acted on.
Yeah.
And that must be clear.
This has been online.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
No, this has not been online.
It's not been online.
Unless it was
It
leaked.
have been online.
No.
Oh, you mean-
No. Now it could be online.
That's what
he
But
said.
before,
Yeah.
He said
no, but before, what they could have done
is
is a lot of people were following because it was in public.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people
So it's
got.
been reported.
Oh, that was reported. So
Yeah.
some of the information was definitely out because it was a public. It was on some occasion that we told them not to report. You see, even to protect the PIU officers,
Yeah.
because they were charged at the time, I ordered the reporters not to mention.
identified.
Yeah, they were identified even before, but I didn't want them to go into the nitty-gritty and say
Because the
commissioner,
commissioner
chairman
was-
has already said they're guilty. You know how your colleagues report these things.
Now, but from what you've said now,
Yes.
all right.
But
the
we
government
have to-
the government
White
paper, which you recommended that they should be prosecuted
Yes.
with appropriate
It-
measures.
yeah.
Should we expect
Yes.
from the evidence that they probably might have acted out of fear, and of course the appropriate measures, should we expect government changing the indictments from murder to maybe manslaughter or negligence?
Well, it's all possible. You see, I don't work for the Ministry of Justice, and I'm not the DPP. They let them look at the facts, what they have. Ours is a commission, civil commission of inquiry. They're supposed to do investigation, and but what we found is that the police they fired. These bullets didn't come from heaven.
Established.
Or hell.
Well, I think
There may have
to
been
be-
mitigating
To be
factors.
fair with the commission,
There
I
has
think
been-
I
there
think
could have
they've
been
done a good
mitigating
job.
factors.
That-
But there are other issues also that needs to be looked at.
Yes, let us-
Lives, properties were lost, were
Yes.
destroyed. In fact, after the incident, people were going to houses of people that they believed were back in Julake, burning their houses, and it was terrible. We had videos. So what
Compensations
exactly, not the compensation, but people that were doing those incidents? Because, I mean, if we are going to punish the PIU officers, these people who are going destroying properties without any justifications, is there any specific punishment for these people? Because at the end of the day, that is also important. This can repeat in any other community as well.
Yes, and I'm happy that you've mentioned that.
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, that's why I said we didn't go there to favor anybody. And I think that's why people are criticizing, but the criticism is not even true of because we have actually, and the government tried to look at because Faraba Banta is a divided society.
Yeah.
You are very right. The youths went and destroyed the properties, and some even 2 days after, where they even called, especially members of the Council of Elders that they felt were sympathetic to Julake or were closer to the Alcalo. Then you have the BDC and the youths, mainly the youths who felt that, our comrades have died because of they sold the land to Julake. We have recommended. And we summoned GRTS, we summoned QTV, and we actually went in session. We looked at these footages. And some of them are, and other footages that we had. Very clear, we identified. If you look at the white paper, it says from pages, and we have actually named names of people who were burning. And we recommended that they should be prosecuted. We cannot encourage impunity in our society. You cannot just have people getting up and burning cars, burning houses, because you're just angry or you have a perception that because Fatou may be sympathetic to Lamin Cham, we need to teach them a lesson. So we have recommended prosecution. Yes, we have recommended prosecution. And another thing that is very interesting, in Faraba, you see, even the chairman of the VDC, although we didn't have indication that the VDC were involved in the violence, but they vehemently opposed the issuance of the license. And they wrote a lot of petitions, stating why. And it appears that the people were with them. Most of the villagers, youths, the women, they're with them. The chairman is is the brother of the chief. They share the same mother and father.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll be surprised that a lot of people whose houses were burned, sometimes it was the friends of their nephews and who burned, and their nephews even didn't help because they saw, the Council of Elders saw the VDC as a law unto themselves. And it was a divided, that's why what led to the stand-up.
But why did you recommend the VDC and the Council of Elders dissolve? Remember, in our communities,
Yes.
we have set of people who
Yes.
everyone look up to in communities and say, these are our village heads, these are traditional leaders. If you dissolve that committee and bring other traditional leaders who people don't really feel associated with as being their elders, would you not think that would bring further division in the communities?
But this was the point. What we saw was the Council of Elders told us that the BDCs and the youths are law upon themselves. They even stop attending meetings because they say they don't respect us. You see the point. This is the point. Remember, it was the villagers who went and burned the houses of the Council of Elders. Are you telling me that they have respected the Council of Elders? There was a problem. Not only the VDC, because that's what I'm saying, that the youths, they said they were law to themselves. The VDC and some of the village members, they also didn't have any respect for the Alcalo. In fact, they said that the Alcalo, before the incident, the Alcalo doesn't even live there. He lives in Birkama. When we want things to be stamped, official document, we have to go look for him. He does things his own way. This is what brought in. Even the MOU, he's decided to sign on our behalf. He didn't consult us. When we asked the Alcalo, he said, well, they do things on their own. They don't. So you see, there was, what you're claiming was not there. What you're claiming was not there. Was it tenable again to have the same Alcalo there when he was in the center of all this? To bring healing. To bring healing to Faraba, Banta, don't you think we need a new start? Absolutely. If you have a divided community, the Alcalo, the Council of Elders. I think that is what the government is trying to do here by saying, you know what?
All of them.
And what they also were trying to do is to try to stop one group saying, aha. I'm just thinking what they were trying to do. Because if you look at the VDC, these are very dynamic young men as well. You talk to them, they're educated, more militant. They understand environmental issues. Even if you see the content of the petition, you know, they follow issues. But they also we discovered in the process, they also had an interest. They were mining sand themselves. But when we asked them, they said that they were only mining sand for the interest of the village. You know, when the communal. But we also discovered when we pushed that even when, members of the village want to build as well, you can get. But also we further discovered that from other evidence that you know, other neighboring villages, they also used to come and get sand. And they levied a fee. Although I'm not saying that their concerns were not legitimate about mechanical sand mining, because that is on an industrial scale. But they themselves, they even have an interest. You see, if you didn't sit as a commissioner, listening to all this, you see, it's very easy if you only have basic facts to say that, it was a whitewash. We were there. Saturdays we used to sit. We went through these places. It was not a lazy commission. We went. We were on our feet. And some of your people followed. We even gave lips to the journalists so that they will know. What we were trying to avoid is the journalists saying that they just sat there and decided. We were out there in Sanyang. We went to the mines. We were in Gunjur. We went to all these places. We sat in Faraba, Banta at the office of the CCF. And it was open. We spoke to everybody. We never had an interest. What we wanted to answer were the questions, our mandate. What led to the standoff? And if you have the opportunity to read, you may critique our report, but we tried our best. Absolutely. Nobody is perfect. But that is what we came up with, and this is what we found out in the whole process. But there are a lot of issues, as we started by saying the issuance of the license. Perhaps geology and NEA should have stepped up. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you know, you can always start somewhere and saying, where did the fall come from? You know, you're concentrating on the select committee. I think they were at the tail end. But if one could say, if maybe the license was issued properly, or if a proper MOU was done, maybe we'll not even have.
Maybe if government had acted on time.
So now,
maybe. There are a lot of maybes.
That's what I want to conclude on that. And that is now. In a nutshell now. give us the summary of your findings. What, well, let me ask you, could this whole mess have been avoided?
Yes, this whole mess could have been avoided if, for example, the licensing process, the guidelines, you have the NEA guidelines, if they were followed properly, if the stakeholders were involved in the process, if you allay their fears, that because some of them were saying that the water course to the rice field, once the mining start in that area, then it will block the water course. Yeah. And the villagers even narrated for us an incident. I think it was Tetrax. They mined they left. You will see the pits there, and it collected water, and a 7-year-old drowned there during the rains. So we really believe that they were legitimate, despite the fact that BDC also had some interest. Yeah. But they were legitimate concerns. We felt that if, for example, the authorities had done proper due diligence and allay the fears, or maybe look for another area, maybe not Faraba, or maybe not that particular spot. You see, the thing is, even the area was not demarcated properly. And if you look at the guidelines, the area to be mined has to be demarcated so that even the villagers will know this area. So if that was done, then perhaps we'll not get there. You see, the police were brought into it also to enforce the rights of someone, you see. And you know, remember where we're coming from. Obey orders. Yeah. This guy has a license. But just because, that's why I said, the act about mines is clear, it belongs to the government. But that doesn't mean that just because there is mine under here, I can come and do whatever at Kerr Fatou. There's a procedure, there's a proper. And also, there has to be corporate responsibilities. We recommended these things. Because you saw this in Gunjur, the fish meal. A lot of these communities we discovered, usually they only know about mine that after licenses are issued. You see, you cannot just have people polluting the environment, one. In these communities, there must be, and also, why don't you bring back to the communities health centers, sports, schools, scholarships, employ the area, and make sure that the NEA also should be very vigilant. They have numerous powers, even to recommend prosecution. You know, why is, and you see, if we don't do these things, we risk having another Faraba Banta. And this is what the president wanted us to find out. And we went to listen to what the people were saying. And in fact, we discovered that demonstrations were even planned during that week of the Faraba Banta because of fish meal factory. So I think we need to be, of course, there will always be resistance to change. But I think proper communication is very important. I don't know, what was your question again? I'm talking about...
I was going to finally we come to compensations, and that is...
Yes, compensation.
You did not, I think maybe it's, whether it's your role or not, categorize how they should be, properties and loss of life.
Yeah, no, in our report, you will read it, which they lifted and put here. Those who died, their families must be compensated. Yeah. Those who suffered injury should be compensated. Those who lost their properties, and if you see, properties were burned completely to the ground, cars, they should be compensated. Those things were actually just lifted from here. And I'm happy that the government has set up a compensation committee. It's there.
Did you put a monetary value?
No. It's not for us to put a monetary value. What we were even doing during the period is we, in the report, we did put some, because they told us, we wanted to know, how much do you think was destroyed? So some of them did. We encouraged them because we knew, like, if something like this is going to happen, and I told them to keep that document because of just in case. So I didn't put a monetary value, but we asked them what was the cost of the truck. Some of them brought the invoice. So these are the things they need to take, and the compensation committee will do their own evaluation. Our job is finished on that part. So the compensation committee will do their part. But we cannot encourage, and you see, as a society, we must adhere to the principles of rule of law from the top down, from the police officers. And we've recommended vetting and training and reorienting police officers. You know, occasionally you hear these things happening because they actually feel, but this is the way they've been oriented.
Well, the government has responded that they already have a security sector reform going on, and that's going to look after that.
Yes, and we hope that they take it seriously. And one of the things we mentioned here was we hope the government will have the political will to actually, yes. And, you know, at least they have not come with an indemnity act like Jammeh did after 10 and 11. At least we must commend them that they didn't come with an indemnity act indemnifying everybody. You see, you cannot sweep things under the carpet.
Or getting the vice president to say it was the protesters who first shot.
Yes. At least they removed themselves. That one, I must admit that they actually removed themselves and they allowed us to do our work.
Did you feel pressured when the report was not out and everyone was...
I was calling all the time.
Well, thank you. He has answered. He's been trying to corner me for an interview. People have been asking me, where is the report, Mr. Juf? I tell them, listen, there is a procedure and there is a process. In fact, I personally was asking some of the authorities that you get your act together and bring this report, because what is happening in Gambia right now is that people speculate. I told you, some have their template. Even before this report came, some will tell you what will be in the report. And of course, I had tremendous pressure. Even when I go to parties, I can't rest. Mr. Commissioner, where is the report? You know, it's just another whitewash. And I'm happy that they took it seriously. Not everybody will agree with everything, but you see, that is...
At least they have taken action.
But
one thing I wanted to... I know it's not very important, but I think it needs to be clarified. The day you presented the report to government and the Honorable Minister of
Justice,
Bantang said there were catalogs of errors, right?
Yeah.
And some people, up to yesterday, I saw somebody said, oh, this is the edited version because there were errors in the first report. I think people, it's a language issue. But some people started saying, oh no, this is the edited version. I think it's important. Some people will do this for political gains, but it's important to clarify that there's only one report and there was no edited version. Just for clarity.
There is one report and I have it. And they cannot even edit it because I am the one who oversaw with my commissioners. We have it, and we all have copies. One, you see, what happened is there are two things. There are people who do not understand, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I even stop sometimes when I'm discussing, then I would see that this person doesn't understand. Let me stop. So, and there are those who are just negative because they want to criticize. What happened was that when we handed over, when we were presenting this report, of course, the Minister of Justice is the one who advised the president. I'm sure he must have quickly done a summary for him because when we gave. And what he said was he discovered that the processes that were like the NEA, geology, there were gaps, there were lack of proper coordination. He was not relating to this report. And I got it, people say and even you will be surprised, even educated people call me up to midnight. Hey, so the minister had rubbished your document. I said, the minister has not rubbished any document. You guys, but again, it's a Gambian thing. One is lack of someone to criticize. You know, we were eager to look for faults. I think you take your pen and let me look at the faults. Two, some it's political. And I think for one or two, they didn't, to be honest, they didn't understand the language. They just didn't understand. And perhaps, if you guys have people who don't understand, don't allow them to comment for your papers.
So we can stop commenting now.
Well, one more thing. I think probably we will come on with that. You were here when Gambia faced one of the most difficult periods. You were a human rights lawyer. So what do you think? What does this represent? For you to be on this commission and you did the work and also seeing the white paper being implemented, do you feel that we've somehow a break with the past?
You see, this is very interesting, and I said it. April 10 and 11, for those who can remember, he's older. When the incident happened, myself, Fatou Jani of Article 19, the current Minister of Justice, Abubakar Tambedu, Mohamed Lamin Silla of Amnesty, we had formed a coalition of human rights defenders. We co-opted senior lawyers like Usman Silla to lead us. And we went to court to ask for the release because immediately after the events, a lot of students were held incommunicado. We went to court asking for their release within 72 hours. And it was granted. In fact, Jammeh was very angry by saying that if they think that it is the lawyers, it was him who gave the orders. We went to court. We went to visit them at the RBTH, those who were injured, shot. I personally even went all the way to Dakar. It was Omar Diouf who was held there, Rado. We were very young, and we had a press conference where we invited the British High Commission and talked about we cannot accept these things to happen in our society. And I'm not saying it was because of us, but Jammeh even had to act there, despite he had to set up a commission of inquiry, of course, only to put an indemnity clause. So, if you ask me, I am happy that we really had the tenacity. In fact, Jammeh was very angry. Later, he called us the illegitimate sons of Africa. We human rights journalists. Yes. But we were happy that we actually pushed the envelope at the time. And of course, the victims are still lingering. But when this thing happened, I think, if you ask me, I felt honored. And I had no doubt. And in fact, I was very happy in Faraba, at Faraba. I hope they will say the same thing. Some of the BDC, they apparently knew me when I just introduced myself, the chair, Emmanuel, and one of them got up and said, let him introduce himself properly. He's the human rights lawyer, used to be a magistrate, and we have confidence. I still hope they have the same confidence after the report. But I am happy. I've always had the passion, and I don't think it has changed over the years. But I am happy that, you see, the thing is, when we started these things then, people even used to ridicule Mr. Human Rights until we realized that these are serious issues. That's why we said the government should not even sweep these things under the carpet. It will come back to haunt us. Some of the officers that I know who even used to say, Ngur Kendu Kohe, they ended up being victims of Jammeh over the years. I had Lang Tombong the other day talking about the death penalty and how vehemently he's opposed to it because he felt it. He could have been executed the night of the... Do you see what I'm saying? When you say these things, people think it's a joke until it happens to them. Power must be checked. And people, all of us, have the capacity and the propensity to abuse power if we are not checked. So let us make sure that we check our rulers and also ourselves from top, bottom. And also as citizens, we must abide. We have rights, but we have responsibilities. That's why we said also, those youths, they must understand you cannot live within a society and go on the rampage and burn things. It's not acceptable. If we're going to live in a society where we adhere to the rule of law, human rights, in a secular state where we respect each other's views, divergence, religion, we need to behave appropriately. And I think this is the whole essence of human rights. This is what we were trying to preach when everybody thought we were joking. Until Jammeh now decided to have the juggler, and today we have the TRRC. We hope we won't have another TRRC. Thank you.
Wow, what an inspiring note.
What should the government do to not have another Faraba Banta? A lot of licenses are being issued.
Yes.
People are saying there will be another Faraba Banta.
No,
as long as the government does not stop issuing these licenses without consulting the villages, without looking at environmental impacts, another Faraba Banta.
Well, even the step that they have taken right now, I think they're sending a strong signal to the institutions like the NEA and geology that, listen, you need to get there, your act together, we put you there. I think they're actually signaling. And I've mentioned that's not the only issue, the issue of land. Land is a big problem. If you go through these areas where land now has a commercial value, where you also even have people struggling, the settlers and the owners. I am a settler, you are an owner, I give you an eviction notice. We discovered all that. I am happy they said they've set up a land commission. But setting up commissions alone is not enough. Let them empower them and listen to them. You know, politics is a game of numbers. And my worry is the danger is that politicians will get carried because they want votes. But you see, if you do not address these issues that are there, in development work, we call them the drivers of conflicts. These are the causes of conflict. If you have issues relating to land, people feel that the environment is polluted, people feel that they are marginalized either because of tribe, because of religion, because of their status, you're brewing a problem. And I think the government should really be serious about it and lead, and not just look at the votes in terms of numbers. Because you'll always have people who will join the bandwagon, whether they're religious leaders. We saw them during Yahya Jammeh. Let's be honest about these things. But I think you need a very mature political leadership to say that, no, this is where we want to stay because of this country. And you are right. People are coming into the Gambia. Let us make sure if licenses are given, there is a proper environmental assessment impact, the communities benefit. It's their area. There must be benefit to these areas. It's not only a problem of Gambia. In other areas as well, there are problems when it comes to mining and all these things. But they should be serious about it and not just politicize it. And by just bringing police officers without solving the underlying issues, you're causing trouble. This is what we said. But also, me, you as citizens, let us have, rights, responsibilities, but let us also be law-abiding.
Thank you very, very much, Honorable. This, when you were appointed as chairman, so many people had confidence that this commission is going to deliver. And I think we just wanted to ask the questions, but we definitely think the commission has done a great job, and we want to congratulate you and your team for a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lamin, what's your final message?
Well, I think overall the commission did a perfect job in getting to what I would call the roots and branches causes of this, and the recommendations also are very valid. And I'm happy, as he is happy, that the government has shown the political will to implement the recommendations. What I expect now is perhaps the government will take into consideration, the prosecutors, while nobody comment on judicial matters, that the appropriate prosecution recommended by the commission will commensurate now with the new realities that the police might have acted in self-defense. Perhaps this will be considered by the prosecutors to reduce their charges from murder to manslaughter. This is not in any way trivializing the loss of life there.
I mean, for me, when the Faraba, I'm one of those who have been calling him all the time.
And you even managed to get some word out of him at the state house,
So for me, it's about the symbolic nature. I mean, the release of the report and the statement of action by the government. For me, it's about the symbolic nature of that action. That at least we having some break with the past.
And we're talking about it
here.
On the German, none of us will talk about it.
Honestly.
Yes.
So for me, that's it. And we will keep having problems, but if we keep talking and we keep pushing, I think we will be better as a country.
Thank you very much. And I think I must give this to the government. I have said on so many occasions on my show that we have so many investigations, but we never have any report being given to us as journalists or as a community. I have said this 100 times, and I think I should be on record to say thank you so much. At least we have got a report, and we are all citizens are looking at it and just making our own assessment of it. Whether we agree or disagree with the report, there is a report out. And this shows that the government is definitely looking up to expectations. So this is what we fought for. A government that will listen to its people, a government that will look at the human rights abuses and act on them. And definitely this report and the way it was handled by the ministry and by the president is highly commendable. And we want to thank the commission. I want to thank the panelists. And thank you so much. Until we come your way next week.